All right, guys. This is actually for some of the guys in my shop, and some of you guys out there in YouTube land might like this, but this is a SLOAN flush valve assembly. 3.5 gallons. They make a 3.5 and then a 1.6 gallon. Your older style is 3.5 gallons. That's normally what you find in most commercial business, residential, commercial, almost every federal building, pretty much everywhere. It's usually something like this. This is SLOAN. There's Zurn and Delaney. That's the only three I know. It's only three that I've ever seen. Delaney's back east. Zurn is pretty much all over the country like SLOAN. SLOAN and Zurn parts will kind of interchange, but I don't recommend it. But anyways, questions when we flush, it wasn't getting enough water down the tube and it wasn't flushing the turds down. Could be two things. Actually, could be three things. The valve, there's a valve up here. There's the flush handle itself could be a little worn, and the vacuum breaker is just not allowing enough water through, shutting itself off. And I'll show you each piece. When you work on one of these, first thing you got to do is shut the water off. This is a 1-inch line inlet. 1-inch line at 55 psi lets in 37 gallons per minute. And it doesn't sound like a lot, but in 30 minutes you're looking at 1,100 gallons of water, which will cause around $37,000 worth of damage depending on your property. Trust me, I know. Speaking from experience. This is just a little cap. It's just a little, the newer ones, this is what it is. Some of them have a screw cap on the outside. And what you do is you take a flat blade screwdriver and you turn this till it shuts. And what it does is it turns a stopper, and I'll show you. That's all it is. They make a kit. This is a rebuild. They make a rebuild kit. That stopper is what you're screwing in, and it pushes up against the inlet on that 1-inch pipe. That's all that screw does, is it screws it down. Now, over time, where I live, our water will actually corrode this rubber, and it takes, 7 years or so. It starts to wear down, and as you push this in, it'll break the rubber down, and the water will not shut off. If you flush this handle and you get a little dribble of water through the pipe, you can hear it running. Do not take this apart. Do not open anything until you shut the building down. But this is a rebuilt kit. They make a kit for a shut off. Like if this is broken or doesn't shut off, you can shut your water off through your building and rebuild. You don't have to replace the whole housing. All you do is this little part. There's three of them right here. The spring, the turnbuckle, and then this rubber. This is just rubber gasket. That's all it is, a rubber plunger. It just goes like that. And then this, it's on top. Never remove this. Never remove this unless you know the water's off to the building, because that's 1-inch stream of water, and you can damage a lot of property. Like I said, if you want to take the cap off, shut your water down, goes all the way down. There, water shut off. You should be able to flush this handle. When you flush this handle, you should not hear any water running down to the toilet. Usually, two things happen with these. You get a constant flush where it won't stop flushing, it constantly runs water, or it doesn't flush properly. First thing you look at after you turn your water off, take this cap off. When you take this cap off, do not use channel locks or something like that unless it's already abused. This is chromed, it's pretty, it's good to look at. There's where these old monkey wrenches come in handy. See this? This thing's over 100 years old. I have one in my toolbox. They make a tool that fits this, but you can buy this for $1 to $5 in any pawn shop, flea market, wherever. They're cheap. Buy an old smooth, or get a monkey wrench. They make them without teeth on it. They're designed to take these caps off. On top, you have this little plastic cap. That fits right in there. Sometimes it'll be stuck on the inside and it won't come out. If it doesn't, that's fine, leave it alone. This is the guts. This is your flush valve. It's a complete kit. A38A, I got the number memorized, been using it for years, decades. This is a 3.5 gallon flush valve, and the reason I can tell it's white. The green ones are 1.6 gallon. They look identical except for this little plastic plunger right here. Tip is green, this part's green. Do not stick a 1.6 in a 3.5 gallon toilet. And the reason is you'll have to flush 3 or 4 times to get the turds to go down the toilet. And people will call, especially if you're in maintenance or a plumber and you have to go back and get a recall because you didn't put the right part in it. It's probably because of this. Just to let you know, in the last probably 8 years, they've been installing newer toilets that are water savers, especially out west, and they'll be 1.6. I've heard of some 1.2s, but I haven't seen them. I've dealt with 1.6 and 3.5 gallon. The building I work in was built in 1958, and we still have toilets that use these. Matter of fact, they've used them up until 8 years ago. They still make 3.5 gallon toilets. That is the go-to, especially your taller handicap toilets. They still use, you can get a 1.6, but 3.5 gallons is normally what you deal with. It's real simple. When you get your water turned off, take this cap off, pull this whole assembly out, and drop a new assembly in, just like that. Don't touch anything else. You don't have to. Usually that is your problem right here. 85, 90% of your time, this is the problem. Drop it in, put your cap back on, tighten this down tight. Do not over torque these threads. I've said this in another video, I made another one of these before. I've only known one man to screw this up. If you get this tight, you He-Man this is all brass. If you He-Man this and you get a little leak, it'll never stop. What you've done is you bent the threads. What I mean by bending the threads, you tightened it so tight that you pulled the threads up. It'll never seal properly. It's brass. It's not hardened steel. This is brass. So once you torque this down, it's just, you can almost hand tighten this thing and seal it. And your seal, this is rubber. This whole thing here, this is all rubber. That's your seal. Once you go up against this and that goes up against and all that, all goes together like that, that seals it. If you have a leak here and you dribbling down or on the back side, sometimes it'll leak, you get it tight and you'll mess up the threads. It constantly leaks, you have to buy this whole assembly. The whole assembly. This is the way it comes. This, what you see right here on this table, all these parts comes in a kit. It's one assembly, and you have to buy it that way. Once you screw up the threads, you can't fix it. And the reason you can't fix it, some idiot out there is gonna say, oh, you can put pipe dope on it. Yeah, right, okay. You can put pipe dope on this. very, 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 very carefully. In other words, you can't be lazy in your damn job. And the reason is because you got little bleed valve. Any debris gets in that, this thing will not work right. Any of that pipe dope gets in here, it will not work right. Any rock, any piece of leaf, any debris, any piece of rubber breaks down and gets in here, your valve won't work right. So those of you who think you can use pipe dope, go right ahead, because I ain't fixing it behind you. If you've got one that's leaking off these threads right here, it's because somebody, probably before you, tightened it too tight. And they tightened it too tight, and these brass threads will curve up. They'll never seal properly. Alright, that's my gripe for the day on that. Usually I have to follow somebody because somebody didn't do the job right, so I have to come back and fix it. Now, this assembly, you can take this assembly completely out. And I do this all the time. Taking it apart. This will be mounted to the wall. This is the water inlet's right here, your 1-inch line coming out of the wall, and then this goes to this. You got your water off. If your water's off, nothing will come out here. You can take this whole assembly downstairs, wherever, put it in a vise, and take it apart. Real simple. A lot of times I'll set these on the floor on a towel, and I'll break it. I got a monkey wrench with I got an old antique monkey wrench like this. This is what I use to take this apart because I don't damage the threads. There's an O-ring right here. That little O-ring right there. All I know it by is a number 50 O-ring. It's a SLOAN. This is a SLOAN flush valve. I deal with these all the time. Our first floor has over 80 bathrooms, so I think we've got 200 something bathrooms in our facility, so 230, something like that. Anyways, this O-ring is a number 50. If you put this, always put soap or a little water grease, or plumbing grease on there. It makes it go in there. There's a spring right here behind it. Never take that off. It'll never come off. If you take this off, you're screwing up. That O-ring, like that, tighten this down. If it leaks here, one of two things happened. You torque the crap out of this thing and screw the threads, and this is going to take a lot of torque. Or the O-ring is flattened out. This O-ring is like $4. I think they charge quite a bit for it. But if you take this apart and you have normally if I have to change a valve, I change the O-ring, change the valve, and the vacuum breaker. I just change those three things. Sometimes I replace the handle, but I'll show that in a minute. If you take this apart to take it down to the shop, change out that O-ring. If you don't have any in stock, get a couple. Tape them up underneath the sink somewhere or up in the ceiling somewhere in that bathroom. That way you'll always have a couple of them. These little O-rings, they're nothing fancy. I just know it as a number 50. Number 50 SLOAN. I don't really know what the part number is, but it seems everybody I tell them that's what I need, that they know. And I have a lot of these. I probably have a couple hundred of these in the shop. And you lubricate it, because this sometimes if you don't lubricate it, use soap. Hand soap is fine. If you don't lubricate it, when you go to squeeze this in, it'll cause that O-ring to roll over. Cause it to roll over that edge right there, and you'll have a leak when you go put it back together. Next thing, if you have a problem and it's not working right after you change this is called the vacuum breaker. Pull it out. 3 parts of this little vacuum breaker. You got a rubber booty. See there? Just rubber. It's really good rubber. This goes on the inside. just like that. It's got a little part where it just fits in there. This right here, take a little brush and clean that out. You'll get water deposits, people piss all over them, their urine just builds up on them. You need to clean it. And the reason you want it, the airflow. This fits on the inside. You can't see it normally because if you got the proper mount, it's hidden. See that? This little flange hides it. This is a paper gasket. Just like that. That is your vacuum breaker. The other part, normally if I'm working on it and I don't know a lot about it or I haven't touched that toilet in a while, I'll leave the water off, I'll take this assembly apart, take it downstairs and just rebuild the whole thing. There's a flush handle here. You can rebuild this too. SLOAN has got a real good system. You can take all this apart right here. It comes in a kit. It's here. It's already got the waterless grease on there. This thread's down in there, just like so. This little rubber boot usually comes off real easy when it's old and rotted. Well, it's not rotted, just wore. See? It's got a little part right there. That rubber just fits right over that edge, just like that. And then it's got this nylon gasket. That's it. And what happens, oh, sorry, I just got ahead of myself here. What happens is you'll get wear. This, when you push down on the handle, it pushes this in, and you'll get wear on the end of this. And it doesn't take much motion. It's very little motion to move the end of this diaphragm. But these are very, 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 very simple to work on. There again, if you have a leak here on these threads, it's because some idiot over-tightened it. You can I've tried it, and you can pretty much get everything tight, hand tight, everything really hand tight, and it won't leak on you if you do it right. But I still snug it about a quarter turn. Now, at the base of this, at the very end, this will connect to the toilet itself, at the base of the toilet, the back side. There is called a spud. See the little dab, little notches right there? That's what you use. This, actually the assembly just fits just like this inside the hole in the back of the toilet. And what you do, they make a tool. But here's what you don't need the tool. Get you a piece of pipe, fit it down in there, cut you a notch on either side of it, drill a hole through that little piece of pipe, stick a screwdriver in it, set it down in there, and while you're holding that piece of pipe, you tighten this assembly down. You tighten this down. See this nut? You're holding this base and you're tightening this nut. And what it does is it sucks the gasket down over that hole in the base of the toilet. These you don't change very often. The only time you really change these is because some idiot used this assembly as a grab bar to get off the toilet, or they've been kicking this flush valve with their foot and leverage loosens this. Usually that's the cause. If you have water bubbling up out of this assembly, right, usually what it looks like these parts go on. Let me put all these parts on here. You got a beauty ring, you got a cap, you got this, you got this. See there? Gasket, fiberglass, the nut, and then this is a beauty ring. This fits in there like this, and it touches the top of those ears, and then you tighten it down. That's it. This is mounted to the toilet because, like I said, they make a tool. You don't have to have the tool. Guy I work with at work, Jerome, did a really good job. He found a piece of pipe that, I don't know, it's an 1.5 inch pipe, I think, 1.25 inch. Fits down in there, and then he just cut a couple little notches on either side of it, and then drill a hole through the top of the pipe. You only need what, about a 3-4 inch piece of pipe, and then stick a screwdriver through the top of the pipe, and then as you're holding that, you can tighten this down and suck this down. And now you got to be careful. I've broken a couple of toilets. You can actually suck this down so tight that this part right here will pull out and snap the toilet, the back end of the toilet. I've only done it twice in 30 years, but it can be done. If you can break a toilet, I've broken probably 8 toilets in my life, just to let you know you can break a toilet. Anyways, this part you normally don't have to deal with unless, like I said, if you got a leak down around, usually it's mounted like this, and you got water dribbling out the bottom around here or down below it. It's probably because somebody used this as a grab bar. Now some of these, you'll see them, they'll be 24, 36 inches off the top of the toilet because the water inlet's so high above the toilet. So people will use these as grab bars. And some rednecks out there that don't want to touch the flush handle will kick it. I ain't figured out why they don't hit the flush handle, but they grab the doorknob. Duh. It's just as nasty as the flush handle. Anyways, put that back. That's it. Real simple. Make sure your water's off. Take your screwdriver, shut it down. Best way to touch it, if that stops, like right there, that stop. It won't turn anymore. You turn this push this handle down, and you still get a trickle of water through there. Do not take this apart. Do not take it apart. Best thing to do is shut the water off to the building. 1 inch pipe at 55 PSI is 37 gallons of water per minute. It doesn't sound like a lot. In 30 minutes, you'll have 1,100 gallons roughly on your floor. Through your floor, through your basement, flooding God knows what else, computers, whatever, doesn't matter. You can ruin a lot with water. So make sure you have your water. Like I said, if you shut this off and you flush this handle, you don't hear any water, your water's off. Also, another way to notice, I've only seen this once. We thought we had this off, and as we were turning this, it constantly was tight under pressure. What it's doing is the water's trying to pull. It's trying to push this out. We stopped. I was pretty sure there was water pressure behind it. Something was wrong. So we shut the water off to the building and opened this up, and sure enough, that stopper was sideways in that pipe. It had broken and went sideways. This valve assembly and this valve were both bad at the same time. I mean, it was ruined. It was bad. It wasn't flushing because it wasn't moving. It wasn't moving this. This flush handle has to move this, and it only moves just a little bit. Just a little bit. It's all it does. Probably less than 3/16 of an inch. And when it does, it'll open this up, and 3.5 gallons of water will dump through this. But all of it was bad. That was the only time I've ever seen it, and that's been a decade ago at least. So, but there you go. Simple. Make sure your water's off. Your water's off, test it. Flush handle, no water. When you take this apart, if you need to take it apart, if you don't need to take it apart, open this up, drop a new valve assembly in. Just take the whole assembly out. This cap usually will stay inside there. That's a whole assembly. A38A is the SLOAN number. Usually this is what's bad. Chunk this, and usually like in where I live, this rubber will leave black, nasty goo all over you. The rubber starts deteriorating. Our water deteriorates it. Just drop a whole new assembly in. This doesn't come apart. You can actually unscrew this and take the rubber. I don't recommend that. Just drop a whole new kit in. Somebody out there, some maintenance director out there is like, oh, you can save money, but tell them go jump a friggin' lake. Just buy a whole new assembly, drop it in. It's a lot less time, easy to do, saves time, saves money, saves labor. And those idiots out there that don't understand that, they're an idiot. It's just that simple. This, same way. You can buy all these little parts, cost more. This whole assembly, that's it. You just drop it in, dump the old one, put it together. It usually comes together in parts. You just put it together. Real simple. Like I said, normally though, if I have to work on one, I disconnect it here. I just take this assembly apart here. I take it loose here. I leave this stand of pipe on the toilet. Take this off, and I usually carry this downstairs. I'll pull the gasket. I'll pull this assembly out. I'll put a new one in there. Take this handle apart. Put the new guts there. Take this off. Put the new diaphragm in, and then replace the gasket. And I do that because if you replace the diaphragm and then 2 months later this is wearing out, or all this is corroded around here, and usually when you can see if it's dirty. You can see if it's corroded. I mean, when you open it up, this nut just falls down to the base of the toilet. Just take a little wire brush or a little brass brush and clean it. It's no big deal. But that's it, ladies and gentlemen. I did this for some guys at work. Hopefully they, if you see something, most of you guys out there don't deal with this kind of stuff, but this is easy peasy stuff for me. Remember, number 50 gasket, flush diaphragm, A38A, the flush handle rebuild kit, and I'm not really sure the number on that kit. Vacuum breaker, I'm pretty sure is a 500A, V500. Anyways, just put it back together. Just remember, do not torque these. Don't He-man these. If you're having to He-man these to keep them from leaking, you got a problem. Somebody before you or you stretch the threads and they won't quit. They won't seal. If they won't seal, you can't fix it. I have seen people use pipe dope, and I have seen people use tape, plumbing tape. The problem with that is if any of that debris gets in there on that valve, this thing won't work right. And normally what happens is continuously flushing. I have seen where somebody put a 3.5 gallon flush valve in a 1.5 gallon assembly, and somebody flushed the toilet while they were still sitting on it. It'll give you a bath. It'll wash. It'll literally, water will spin up out of the toilet out at you. I have seen where the flush valve over time would wear out. They stuck a 3.5 gallon in a 1.6 gallon toilet, And when this thing wouldn't quit flushing, water, this thing wore out, the water, our water deteriorated the rubber. It will sit there and keep flushing. It will not stop until you turn the water off. And water spinning out of the toilet, it literally, it's whirlpooling, but it's not whirlpooling down, it's whirlpooling out of the toilet and onto the floor. And if you're in a 2-story building or 3-story building, that water goes everywhere, because concrete is not completely, I don't care if you fire barrier everything, you got everything caulked, water will find a hole to go through, and it'll go to your basement, and it'll ruin a computer. Just to let you know, everything I've said, I've done. So anyways, ladies and gentlemen, for those of you who watch this video for no reason, it's just for entertainment, that's fine, but this is actually meant for some of the guys in the shop. So make a quick video on how to repair a SLOAN. A couple little things already covered. Try not to use channel locks with teeth on these. You damage it and it looks bad. Also, it's not sanitary, because once you damage the chrome, it breeds problems. You'll see them if you ever go into a quick mart somewhere and you go to the bathroom in there and these are all boogered up and damaged and it's corroded real bad. Either the plumber didn't know what he was doing, or the owner of the facility didn't know what they were doing. Also, do not use Zern parts in a SLOAN. They will work, maybe. And what we have found, we had a salesman once try to sell us, oh, it's cheaper, buy the Zern. These little tabs right here, these little pieces right here, we found we had to sand them down a little bit on the Zern to fit in the SLOAN flush assembly. This is a complete flush assembly. So no, the salesman ever tells you that, you get his number. That way when you're on call in the middle of the night, you can call his ass, come out and fix what he sold you. It doesn't work, trust me. So buy the correct part. This SLOAN assembly with the correct parts in it should last you, I don't know, 10,000 flushes. I mean, these are well built. They're expensive, I understand, but if you put something like this in your facility, Delaney, Zern, or SLOAN, complete with the correct parts in it, you're looking at very minimal, I mean minimal labor cost. I can rebuild one of these in, I don't know, 15 minutes. If I have every part on my toolbox, I can almost rebuild, well, I can rebuild one of these in place. Just remember, if you have a SLOAN, which this is a SLOAN, buy SLOAN parts. You'll like it better in the end. And everybody sells. You can go to Lock Supply. We have a Lock Supply store, plumbing supply. They sell the complete assembly with all the parts. So it's a good item. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I think this video is going to be pretty long. Oh well. Y'all have a good evening. Hope this helps somebody. If not, if you like it, if you don't like it, it's not for you guys, it's for the guys in the shop. Anyways, I'm just gonna put it on my YouTube channel. Ladies and gentlemen, have a good day. Bye.